It was the summer break of 2018, and I could finally relax and rejoice. However, I felt a kind of hollowness in my life that haunted me so deeply, I couldn't even vocalize it. Also, the fact that I was moving schools didn't help either. Desperate and defeated, I opened my dusty closet that hadn't been touched in ages and dug out my final chance at solace. Basswood enclosed in a coat of jet black, strings spun meticulously around pegs chiseled into exquisite silver plates. Lightweight, but sturdy. Old, but full of an untamed, raw spirit. I last held that guitar when I was 12, and as I ran my fingers across the fretboard, a sense of unfathomable potential subdued my body. How to get good at guitar fast. After learning enough chords, I set out to learn my first song, Hurt by Johnny Cash. If Cash heard the monstrosity that wrung from my strums, he'd be rolling in his grave. Hours of pressing on the hard surface made my fingers bleed. My mother then asked me, "What did you do?" I replied, "I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real." Entering into my new school, I became the guitar guy. I still am. That label was my ticket into not just the hearts of ladies, but also the music society where I met a community of brilliant musicians. It was then when I realized what induced that dreaded hollow feeling. It was because I never had a community. Now that I do, our notes mingle together to form the most grandiose ensemble. Raspy or high-pitched, turbulent or gracefully harmonic. I could understand the voices of others who played with me in symphonic beauty because this art form, like all others, is a universal language that will hold you delicately in its arms. No matter your creed, age, or skin, there will always be a place for you here. African Americans in the 1920s understood this perfectly. In a bustling neighborhood situated in northern Manhattan, millions flocked to this enchanted land in search of a safe haven. Down south, a railroad conductor asked, "Where are you headed to, mister?" And the passenger replied, "Harlem, New York, good sir." It was called the Great Migration. The state of New York enjoyed a population boom of 66%, where from every corner, the tunes of brass beasts roared and piano keys symphonized. That helter-skelter was the embodiment of Black culture preserved behind the doors of suave jazz bars. But more than just to please the ears, it was their only avenue to expressing themselves. With every note, the racial divide was bridged, just enough for even white folk to respect Black intellectualism. A century later, the Harlem Renaissance passed its legacy to the singer-songwriter Lionel Richie. During a scintillating performance at the Tintora Festival in the Saudi desert, Mr. Richie lived up to his predecessors. In the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where the crowd is segregated by sex, Richie did what no activist could have ever done. His voice instilled so much wonder in his audience that men and women bounced from their separated zones and congregated onto the stage together. The lyrics lit a fire of unity in the hearts of men and women. Its shimmer was so radiant that for a few hours, the oppression and the division was forgotten. Lionel Richie gave closure to the night with one sentence: "Things here will never be the same again." Art and music are so much more than just paint and atomic vibrations. They assemble relations, foundations, and communities that will last for generations. I first thought of singing my way through this conclusion, but in wanting to spare you from my abhorrent vocals, I realized what I'm doing is already an art form. A boy like me, neither special nor bombastic, who would have listened to me? Yet here I am at the grand final of the ESU with you as my crowd and me in the spotlight. Harlem, Saudi Arabia, and I, our voices are the change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, do we have any questions after that very musical speech? Any questions? Give me a little wave or pop them into the chat. So Matthew, if you would like to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Samir, very much. That was fantastic. So my question for you is, there you are, you're in the spotlight and you're talking about change. What changes what would be your priorities in terms of change? And how do you think Oracy can help that?
Thank you for that wonderful question. I think before we decide to hop on the bandwagon and decide to solve this issue or that issue, we have to at least give people a means to voice their concerns in the world. And there is no more universal platform to stand upon than art itself. Art, music, paintings, fine art, these are all things that anyone can do. Because not everyone can be a politician and solve the world problems, but everyone can pick up an instrument and express their emotions. So the change that I'd like to see is for us all to unlock our inner artist, our inner desires, and use it to voice what we want from this world. Thank you. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else have a question at all? Gavin, do you have a question for us?
Thank you. Yes. I think you talked beautifully about the positives that can come out of an artistic or a musical community. Sometimes they can, though, be sort of exclusive and have, harmful effects. How do we make sure that communities are positive and welcoming and supportive in the way you described?
Thank you, Gavin. That's a wonderful question. And my answer to you is art doesn't have to be positive to instill positive change. So take, for example, the band NWA, where in the 1980s, they released a song called F the Police. And this was in a time where there was no Black Lives Matter. There was no platform to stand upon and show the scars of racism slashed onto your body. But then this band released a song that perfectly encapsulated the struggles of the African-American condition in the 80s. They talked about police brutality, and this song was the only way for people to understand the struggles of these people. And evidence of this negative song having positive effects is, if you look at George Floyd's protests, F the Police became a standard anthem. It was a chant personalized to these rebels of injustice. So to answer your question, no, it doesn't have to be positive or all rainbows and sunshine. Sometimes what we need in this world is a little reality check. And then that's how art can have a positive effect even through a grim tone. I hope that answers your question.